Well, I have had an incredible day. Have you guys had a great day? Anybody else had just an incredible day? Today started off like most days do. I woke up this morning and I went through my normal morning routine. I got dressed, I went downstairs, I fixed a cup of coffee, I fixed a bowl of cereal. I got everything ready and set up, let the dog out to go out to the bathroom, and then I sat down at the table to read the morning news headlines and check on my email. And what I found in my email this morning changed everything. In fact, I almost didn't come tonight because what I found in my email this morning changed everything. Now, I grew up in the age of Publishers Clearinghouse. Anybody remember Publishers Clearinghouse? My mom used to get the big envelope that would come, and we would sit down at the kitchen table, and she would fill out that sweepstakes form, and me and my brother would be there with her watching every move. Sometimes she would even buy the magazine because she was convinced that if you bought the magazine, you had better odds of winning, which in 1992 was proven to be true when the FBI did an investigation and found 10,000s of letters from people that had turned in their sweepstakes and hadn't bought a magazine, was just thrown in the trash outside behind Publishers Clearinghouse. So my mom would fill it out. She would close up the envelope, put the stamp on the envelope, and me or my brother would argue over who got to go out and put it in the mailbox and raise the little red flag beside the mailbox. And then for the next several weeks, we would sit there and wait. And anytime a car that we didn't recognize would pull up to our house, we would wait at the window with anticipation, hoping that Ed McMahon would get out of that car, holding a giant check with an entourage of people with balloons and confetti, screaming and yelling, "The prize patrol is here!" And our life would change. It sparked a movement in me to want to get rich quick. My first foray into get-rich-quick entrepreneurship was when I was in the first grade. It was summer vacation, and I needed money for a new skateboard. So I had an idea. I came across a piece of prime real estate. It was right on the corner of my block at the cross streets, the cross corner of the two most major intersections that we had in our neighborhood. I borrowed some supplies from my parents. A table, a couple of folding chairs, some kitchen utensils, and I set up shop with a lemonade stand. I called it lip licking lemonade, LLL. I set up shop and I sold my lemonade for 25 cents a cup. So when I had my first lesson on business management, the difference between gross and net profits. You see, at 25 cents a cup, I didn't make enough even to cover the cost of the sugar and the lemons that I was having to buy from the grocery store to make the lemonade. So I doubled my cost to 50 cents a cup, and I was raking it in. People were coming from blocks all around to get some of this LLL lemonade. It was fabulous, it was wonderful, and my pockets were being lined with quarters. That is, until Lisa French opened a competing lemonade stand right across the street. I hated that little girl. Her blonde pigtails and her blue eyes and her perky smile. I couldn't stand her. She was putting me under. I couldn't compete with her because she undersold me. 25 cents a cup for hers. Now, I knew that she couldn't be making any profit, but she didn't seem to know that she couldn't be making any profit. I needed a new business strategy if I was going to stay afloat, and I needed a new business strategy now. So that night, when my parents took me and my brother out for dinner, I found one. We went to dinner at Long John Silver's. It's a fancy seafood establishment that they have out on the West Coast. Now, Long John Silver's has an island in the middle of their restaurant where you can go and freely take from napkins, plastic forks and plastic knives, ketchup and tartar sauce, sugar, sweet and low, equal, and little lemonade packets. Long John Silver's was also less than a 5-minute bike ride from my house and a 4-minute bike ride from my place of employment. So that next morning, I hopped on the old Schwinn. I rode down to Long John Silver's, and I stuffed my pockets full of Equal and Sweet and Low and sugar and lemon packets and plastic knives. Because, oh yeah, you'd be amazed how many middle school boys will pay 50 cents for a plastic knife that their parents have no idea about. It was a gold mine. All of a sudden, my profit margin skyrocketed as my overhead plummeted. And I was able to undersell Lisa and charge 15 cents a glass. I was raking it in. That is, until a police officer pulled up. He got out of the car and I offered him a glass of lemonade. In fact, I offered it to him for a dime. I said, "Thank you for your service. I do offer a Men in Shield discount." He asked to see my business license. Business license? I'm in first grade. He threatened to haul me in right on the spot for operating without the proper licensure and for selling illegal arms. Who knew that you couldn't sell plastic knives for 50 cents? As I looked at the officer, I thought about just jumping on my Schwinn and booking it. I thought about just heading out. I knew that he couldn't catch me because I knew all the shortcuts through the streets of the neighborhood. But then I thought that I didn't want to become the youngest person ever on the FBI most wanted list as a convicted arms dealer. And so I thought that maybe I should just pack up shop. I loaded everything into the back of my wagon, and as I began to ride on my bike to head back home, closing up shop on LLL lemonade stand for the very last time, I looked and that officer was buying lemonade from Lisa right across the street. So I walked over to see her business license. And that's when I noticed. His badge said Officer French. It's okay. It's all right. I had higher ambitions in the beverage industry anyway. You see, I grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas, Nevada, if you've never been there, is the gaming capital of the world. In fact, if any of you have ever been to Las Vegas, you know that every place that you walk into in Las Vegas has a casino. And I'm not talking the big, monstrous casino establishments like the MGM Grand or the Bellagio. I'm talking every grocery store that you walk into. Gary, every Walmart in Las Vegas that you walk into has a casino. Every 7-Eleven, everywhere, has slot machines and video poker machines. Now, it's pretty common knowledge that even in Las Vegas, there's a strict law that you have to be 21 to be able to gamble. But as a local growing up in Las Vegas, you learn the establishments that, well, are a little bit lenient on that prohibition. And it just so happens that one of those establishments happened to be a little seafood restaurant about 5 minutes on the Schwinn from my house. It was summer break, summer of my 5th grade year. I was making the jump from elementary school to middle school. I was a 7th grader now. I was older, and me and some of my friends had made our way for lunch at Long John Silver's. Long John Silver's had 2 video poker machines and 2 slot machines, both operating off of quarters that sat right inside the entrance to the restaurant. And so after we'd eaten our meal, we were walking out, and I had a shiny quarter burning a hole in my pocket. I looked at that slot machine, and I looked around to see if anyone was noticing. I was confident that nobody was noticing, so I took that quarter out and gently, slowly placed it into the machine, pulled the handle, and watched as the spinning came around and around and around. Nothing. I looked around to see if anyone had seen anything. No one had noticed. I'd won nothing. But something else had happened. You see, in that moment, something had burst forth inside of me. Something had erupted inside of me that sent joy and happiness and anticipation coursing through my veins. Long John Silver's and the Las Vegas gaming community had figured out a way to take what Publishers Clearinghouse took weeks to accomplish and packed it into a mere couple of seconds. The hope of riches, the joy of the game, all unfolded in front of me. And for that entire ride home on my Schwinn bicycle, that night laying in bed, I thought over and over again, I must experience more. So the next morning, I hopped on my bike with another quarter. I headed down to Long John Silver's. I looked around to make sure that nobody was looking. I put in a quarter and I pulled. Nothing. I quickly ran out so that no one would tell on me. Later that afternoon, I went back with 4 quarters. I stood in that entryway. I put in the first quarter. I pulled. Nothing. Put in the second quarter. Pulled. Nothing. I was getting the hang of this now. Third quarter, pulled. Nothing. I looked around, and sitting behind the cash register at the counter was a man with Long John Silver's written on his shirt, and he was staring at me, and I could feel my heart begin to beat inside of my throat. I was busted. I was caught. I was going to jail. I was sure of it. I was trying to figure out how I was going to escape until I looked, and he smiled at me. I still had another quarter in my pocket. Put it in. I pulled. He was still smiling. I didn't win anything, but he was still smiling. He was perfectly okay with me gambling here as a 5th grader, soon to be 6th grader. I hopped on my Schwinn and I headed home, and I told all of my friends about what happened at the Long John Silver's that day. Now, most middle school boys spend their summers at the 7-Eleven, wasting away their allowance on Slurpees and baseball cards and now and laters. But that summer, me and my 3 best friends spent every waking day at Long John Silver's. I must have spent $200 in quarters that summer. We became such regulars that my friend behind the counter would bring us free drinks and crumbles, the crunchies, I think just to keep us there, throwing away our money into the machine. Until one day in early August, I'd grown tired. I was getting carpal tunnel in my right arm from pulling on that so many times that I decided I needed to move down a couple of seats to the video poker machines. I put in a few quarters. Nothing. I didn't know how to play video poker. So after losing a couple of dollars, I made my way back to my trusty machine. I put in a quarter, I pulled the handle, and I watched as the letters and symbols began to spin and spin and spin. 7, 7, 7. Lights and sirens began to go off. The place was going crazy. Everyone in the restaurant was putting down their cod and standing up to look and see what was happening over at the entrance and exit. I began to have all of these feelings of anxiety and excitement as thoughts of skateboards and now and laters and Slurpees at a never-ending lifetime supply began to fill my mind. Quarters were clanging and clashing. It must have been millions of dollars that was falling out. And then I felt a tap on my shoulder, and I looked, and my friend from behind the counter was standing there. And he said, "Young man, do you have any ID?" Oh. ID? I'm 12. Not 21. I just started using deodorant last week. What do you mean, do I have any ID? You've been watching me gamble here for 2.5 months. You've been giving me free drinks. In fact, the drink in my hand right now you brought to me just 2 hours ago. What do you mean, any ID? Sir, it is highly illegal for someone your age to be sitting in this establishment gambling. I think you better leave. And as I was beginning to pick up my quarters, he said, "Oh no, it would be a very bad idea if you were to take even a penny of that money." Now I thought about grabbing it, stuffing my pockets and running, but I could swear I heard in the distance the sound of sirens coming. And so, not wanting to add to my already long criminal list, I quickly headed my way out of town. I learned a very valuable lesson that day. A lesson that those of you that have frequented Las Vegas and other casinos know. The house always wins. And so, that prompted my next business venture. Be the house. Growing up, my family, my parents subscribed to the Las Vegas Review-Journal. It's the local newspaper there in Las Vegas, and every morning before school, I would wake up, I would go downstairs, I would fix some breakfast, sit down at the table, and I would grab the sports section. I would peruse the sports section. I would check the box score and see what the Dodgers had done the night before. I would read the recap of the Lakers games. I would peruse through the editorials on UNLV sports. I would look and see what that night's TV lineup was and what times the game started. But the one section of the Las Vegas Review-Journal that I never paid any attention to was the sports and gaming section. Every single day in the Las Vegas Review-Journal, a half a page is dedicated to showing all of the betting lines for all of the games that morning, and it was irrelevant to me. That is until the summer before my freshman year of high school, when my dad surprised my brother and I by signing us up at Sam's Town Casino for an NFL 16-week parlay. Every Tuesday, he would go down to Sam's Club, he would get a parlay card that had all of the games for that coming week, and we together would pick all 16 games against the spread. Now, it was something that was just fun for us, but there was a lot of money at stake for those that took it seriously. And it turned my attention to that section of the Las Vegas Review-Journal with sports betting and lines. And so when I started my freshman year of high school, I had a new business. I would wake up every morning before my parents even would wake up. I would take the scissors out of my mom's utility drawer. I would cut out that half page, sneak into the laundry room where my mom, who was an elementary teacher, had a laminating machine. I would laminate the sports lines, and I would go to school where up until lunchtime, I would accept 3, 5, and 7 card parlays from all of my student friends. Now, it was $1 a game. And if you won your parlay, you would quadruple your money. I was smart enough to know that I didn't want to make the stakes too high. The highest bet could be $7, $1 per game on a 7-card parlay against the spread. And so if you lost your money, which you were going to do because the house always wins, the most you were out was $7 a day. I figured this was smart because no one would get too upset at only losing $7. No one would tell the school administration, and no one would pound my face in. I had one Mark who was a senior. And he played 7-card parlays against the spread every single day. And every single day he lost. After several weeks and months of this, I guess he got tired of losing his $7 a day and seeing my pockets filling with money. More money than I ever possibly could have thought that I would make as a freshman in high school. And he came to me and tried to intimidate me into giving him his money back. Intimidate me? That's not happening. When he realized that he couldn't intimidate me with his words, he thought that he would blackmail me and threaten to go to the principal. You were just as much at fault as I was. You're going to blackmail me? I'm not going to stand for that. He couldn't intimidate me. He couldn't blackmail me. So I guess he thought that he would physically bully me. That worked. He and his friends beat the living daylights out of me. They took me from all my money and they left me for dead. I thought about going to my school administration. I thought about calling the police, maybe even the FBI, and the thought even crossed my mind of contacting my parents. But then I remembered that what I had been doing for those several months was highly, highly illegal. And what he had done to me paled in comparison to what my parents would do if they found out. So that day, I decided that I would retire for good from the gaming industry. I would also retire for good from the human punching bag industry. Over the last 20, 30 some years, my adventures and my hopes and dreams in getting rich quick, I've put aside, except for the occasional Powerball ticket. That is until this morning. When I was going through my normal routine, getting dressed, going downstairs, cup of coffee, bowl of cereal, let the dog out, sit down at the kitchen table to peruse through the morning news headlines and my emails, and that's when I saw it. I had a personal email this morning from Prince Abdul Mohammed Akali. Said that he had been a fan and watching me for a long time, and the poor guy, it's sad, it's so sad, but he's on his deathbed. And he has no kids, no family of his own. He has $32 million that he wants to make sure goes to someone of good moral character and judgment and with an entrepreneurial spirit. And so all I have to do is send him my bank account information, and he's going to wire that money right over. So I've got to get out of here soon, right away, because I want to make sure that gets done before someone else can do it. Thank you guys so much.